Well,
Where have you gone?
I don't even know. I fell off there. Jarrod and Robin here, back this week. We're moving into Test season, and we've got plenty to talk about when it comes to Test cricket and everything else. But we obviously have to talk about the fallout that happened in Bengaluru last week with what happened with the fans. I've been on this for a very long time that I don't think that governments and sporting bodies really understand what happens when a team wins and the outpouring of emotion. And I've been in lots of different places around the world where I was like, if this team wins this game, the police and the government are not ready for what is about to happen to this city. It's a terrible, terrible moment for cricket. Unfortunately, it's not the first time it's happened, and I honestly don't think it will be the last time.
You know, Jar, you've actually gotten stuck, but I'm just going to pick it up from where you left it off, or at least where I heard you last. It's unfortunate that you say that it's not going to be the last time that this happens. I think that this one has hit home for me quite closely. I think I've just lost Jarrod there for a minute. I think he'll come back.
Sorry, mate.
Yeah, he's just
I was
coming.
in the middle of
Yeah, no
that
worries.
speech. I thought I was doing really
Yeah,
well, and then
you were.
suddenly the internet just went up. But mate, I'd love to hear you know your thoughts on this, and I'm sure it's quite emotional for you as well.
Yeah, it's actually hit home for me. So it's hit quite close to home for me because obviously it's home and it's the loss of our locals and a lot of kids at that. So it doesn't feel great. I was angry for almost a day, and I really delayed even putting anything out on social media because I was just so angry. Because in a sense, we were talking about a modicum of balance, even during the rivalries bit, right? And one can understand that in celebrations, people really want to get close to the team and celebrate with them in a sense. I certainly think it could have been better planned. Maybe just take a day off to just plan the whole event before they actually did that, because the city did deserve it, to be very honest. The fans did
Definitely.
deserve that celebration. um, and I only think that I wish it was done differently. I wish it was dealt with in a way that was a little bit more planned, to be honest. And I feel very, very badly for all the loss that families have encountered. And the sad part is now every time there's an RCB game, my heart shudders to think about what those families will experience every time an RCB game happens or every time an RCB win happens moving on. So it just hurts, man. It just
It,
truly hurts.
exactly, and I think to go back what you were saying about a moment ago, obviously the deaths have brought this into focus, right? And the tragic nature of what has happened. But you go through and you're just like, again, it looked like that fans weren't being put first, right? And we see
Yeah.
that so
Mm,
often in cricket, and it happens in other
mm,
sports as well. But
mm,
and I understand the logistical problems with these things because
mm.
what happens, and I've talked to government organizations and to police organizations about this. They don't want to put they don't want to plan for the thing that may not happen, right? Because that takes a lot of money away from them and a lot of time and effort away from them, and it can be awkward. But at
Yeah.
the same time, we all knew what was going to happen in that city when they won, right? Like we've been talking about
Yeah.
their fans for how long, right? Almost every episode of
Especially
this
with the
podcast.
infrastructure that's there in Bangalore, right? Bangalore is not
Yeah.
built for so many people. It's maybe a 45,000, 50,000 capacity stadium, if that. And
Mm.
there were about 3.5 lakh, 4 lakh people outside. So everyone is trying to clamor into the stadium, right? Everyone's trying to get into the stadium. I'm nobody when it comes to planning stuff, but perhaps if they open the gates of the stadium right at the start and allowed people to come in and say whoever comes in first, gets to gets to attend, and then you close the whole thing down and you kind of shut the road off and only open that road that leads to the stadium for only the bus and officials, right, and nobody else. Then it kind of, and then if you had screens, if you just shut those roads off for the evening, and you actually had screens there where people could sit down and actually
Yeah.
watch and celebrate right outside the stadium with the team. That would have been a great touch, I thought. I just think they didn't have enough time to plan for it, and I think in hindsight, doing it the next day perhaps was an error in judgment.
Yeah, no,
Massive
I
one.
100% agree. And like, you know, we've obviously we're not going to talk about all the other stuff that will come from this. People will be untangling this for years to come. I mean, people are still, you know, how long did the Hillsborough tragedy take for all the details to come out? There's so many people, so many moving parts here. But I hope the cricket takes this as a moment to understand that the fans have to be looked after. We can't have a situation where, like, I don't know if you read many of the articles of the fans who were there, or the, you know, some of the videos that they put out, but
Yeah, I did.
it was just
Yeah,
chaos, right? No one knew what
yeah,
was happening in any way. And you know, too often I think in cricket we allow for that, and I've seen it happen in other countries as well. This isn't an India. I know some of these things are India specific, but it's not just India. I remember being in Sri Lanka when Sri Lanka won the 2012 semi-final, and and they almost won the final against the West Indies. If they won that final, Colombo wasn't ready for what was about to happen to their city. And that's the thing that we
yeah,
have to get used to. We have these incredible fan bases in cricket now, but we have to protect
yeah.
them, you know, from that as well. And as you said, so many people trying to get in. Of course, everyone wants a taste of it. We understand. But look, thoughts go out to all the families of those,
Yeah,
because
and to the
as you
RCB
said,
fans as well, and I think the whole
yeah.
contingent of RCB fans, because you know this victory will always be marred by the loss of the lives of the people involved and the fans involved, and so you know as in, it's so unfortunate that they can't even celebrate the win that they've achieved after so many years, after so much of hard work. It's going to be marred by this, right? And so you got to feel sad for the fans, of course, for the players. But I agree with you. I think it should be fan first, especially celebrations like this should be fan centric first, and then everybody else. Just the players and fans, and then everybody else, and then all the peripheries that actually kind of get involved with this whole thing.
You are currently in Nagpur,
Mm,
doing some mentoring for everyone else. So the reason I bring that up is not so that you can pimp your coaching business again, but we'll put the website up on the, on the YouTube. But
when it's
partly
ready, I'll
because
tell you. I'll let you pimp it up when it's ready. It's not ready yet.
I'll make an ad for you. I'll make an ad. I'll make an infomercial for your company for you. The reason I asked that is how much of the World Test Championship do you think? Well, I suppose more than that, are you going to be watching the World Test Championship final? Are you excited for it, or is it just separate to you at the moment?
No, I'm not excited for it, but I certainly want to follow it. I want to see. I'm hoping to see the rivalry kind of come through a little bit between Australia and yes, finally. Okay, finally. Okay.
Yeah, I was going to put it on the
I'll get.
start. That's why I disappeared from the start of the thing, and then I thought I'm about to talk about like RCB fans and what's gone through. It's going to look very inappropriate if I'm wearing a helmet for that. But
That's
now
right.
you can
Good.
talk. Let me
Good
get
call.
the hair out of my eyes. Go. Sorry, you going to watch the
You
game?
actually look quite good in that, Jared, I have to say.
I don't think it's a very
I
good
hope you
helmet.
know. I hope you know you need to strap it, right?
Yeah, but I thought that fiddling with the strap in front of the microphone for the next 5 minutes would be not the most. So I've just tucked it behind. But when I was a kid, I don't know if you did this. We used to put the straps behind our chin until we were told that the strap was actually part of the defense
Only
of
you,
your
man.
body.
Only you.
No,
Like we
oh,
all
we
wore
used
the
to.
straps.
I hated the straps. Sorry.
Yeah.
So to get back, you gonna watch the game or not?
I am going to watch the game, and I'm hoping that the rivalry can come through a little bit. Obviously, it's going to be hard fought. I'm hoping the wicket's going to be pretty spicy because both teams have some really incredible fast bowlers and really test the batters there. So I'm really hoping for a good game. But I would say that my interest wouldn't be as much as it obviously would have been if India was playing, or if there were two teams that had a much deeper rivalry. I think this rivalry between Australia and South Africa are just kind of forming. In fact, there was a high when the rivalry was pretty big, and then it tapered off, I think. And I think we need someone to spice it up, man.
Look, I think with Australia and South Africa, it was a huge rivalry through the 90s, right? And then again in the 2000s. And the problem at recent times is that South Africa just haven't been as good a side, right? And so
Yeah.
Australia just moves on, right? Like, they've got England and India, whereas
Yeah.
At one stage, Australia had a great rivalry with Pakistan, right? Because the Pakistan team would push them in the 90s when other teams wouldn't. There's no rivalry between Australia and Pakistan anymore, right? Like, I mean, Pakistan is just watch the series and go, we're going to lose. So I think that is a part of it. So I was at the ground yesterday, mate. The wicket is quite green at the moment. It's 2 days out from the game. And so you don't want to get too excited. But it was more green than I thought it was going to be. I can tell you that. I've looked at the Lords. Weirdly enough, it's been a high scoring summer for a lot of the test grounds so far. I don't know if you followed any of the Edgbaston or Old Trafford scores, but it's been tough to get wickets.
I have.
Lords has been a little bit
I think that's been
different.
intentional also. I think that's pretty intentional by England. I think it is. Because
no. This isn't. I'm talking about the first class grounds. That's not intentional by them. I think Old Trafford is desperate for a wicket. I think there's just, because it's got so dry, it's been very hard to give anything to the bowlers so far this year. They've just been very flat. Lords has been a bit different.
I was in Birmingham last year, buddy. I have to tell you, I'm sorry cutting you off, but I was in Birmingham last year for the WCL. And in that, I was having a conversation with someone about the wickets in England, basically England cricket, so to speak. And they were telling me, I can't remember who, but they were telling me that they're looking to make the wickets in first class cricket a lot more flatter because they want to find a lot of good batters from England, and they really need to bolster up their batting quite a bit, and which is why they feel like after Joe Root, they don't really have, outside of Ollie Pope and Ben Stokes, but Ben also obviously has injury issues from time to time. They're looking to develop good batters and get them to score runs, and so that their confidence builds. That's what I heard last year. So I'm not surprised that the wickets are full of runs, to be honest.
No, I think that's true. I think they're copying the New Zealand method. Do you remember when New Zealand basically used to have green tops for their first class cricket, and they completely changed them to make them more like traditional test wickets? So they did do that, but I don't think that's why we've seen the extreme results this year. I think the extreme results this year are just because it's been so dry in the UK. And so there's no moisture around, and without that moisture, you're in a situation where the ball's just not doing anything off the surface. And even dry wickets in the UK, I mean, I think Jadeja will probably have an okay summer based on how dry they are, but I don't think you're suddenly going to get ragging turn or anything. Generally, what happens with dry wickets in the UK is just ends up being a batting pitch, right? It just very flat surface ends up helping the batters. But Lords has been a little bit different. It's had a couple of low scores and a couple of high scores in the game. There's no, and even within the same game, you might get a team rolled for 150, 160, and then make 400 in the second innings. So it's a little bit more up and down. I would assume it's going to be more of a batting surface. I think if it's a batting wicket, that just helps Australia a lot more because their batting is a lot more robust than South Africa's. Whereas I think if it's a green top, that's a shootout then, and South Africa's got a big chance.
Yeah, especially with Rabada with the red ball. I think he's one of the most dangerous bowlers in the world as far as red ball cricket's concerned. So, and with everything that's happened with him over the last couple of months, he'll be wanting his cricket to speak for itself than anything else at the moment. So I really think that if the wicket's got a little bit of help, you'll see Rabada with his tail up. And the one guy I think, surprisingly enough, who I think will do well is Marco Jansen. I think he's flown under the radar a little bit, and I think he's got a lot to offer with red ball cricket, and I think he will bring that to the fore in this finals.
I can tell you one thing that we've been looking up, and I don't have the full numbers in front of me, but I was looking them up the other day. I just suddenly had this theory that South Africa don't bowl very well to left-handers, and it's because I knew that Rabada wasn't quite as good against left-handers as he was right-handers. You look at the way the team's set up. Australia has a lot of left-handers.
He's gotten Warner out a bunch of times, bro.
Everyone got Warner out by the end. If you have a look overall, South Africa as a team actually really struggle against left-handers, and there's only one bowler they have who's better against left-handers than right-handers, and that's Wiaan Mulder, who won't bowl all that much probably in this game anyway. So I think that Rabada matches up quite well against Usman Khawaja, which is a good start. But Head and Carey are still major sort of players down the order there. So that's quite an interesting one. It's just a small little thing, but it came to my head and I was like, I wonder if this is true. And you look it up and you're like, okay, yeah, this is something that they have a bit of an issue.
How did this come to you? How does this stuff just come to you, dude?
I remember we did a video on Rabada, Cummins, and Bumrah, and in it, I remember the big difference between Rabada, Cummins, and Bumrah when you look at their numbers is versus right hand, left hand. So the other guys are still really great against left-handers, and Rabada isn't.
Mm.
So then I was like, I don't remember Michael Janssen being great against left-handers either. So then I look it up, man. This is what I do. What do you do with your spare time? You're out there trimming your beard all the time, and swanning it up in Nagpur in Nagpur's party scene, and I'm out here grinding with stats on
Party
South
scene in
African first.
Nagpur, is it? Party scene in Nagpur.
That anyone
I like Nagpur. It
knows
reminds
how
me of
funny that is.
Bangalore in the 90s. It's quiet. It's
What, the
it's small.
1890s?
No 1990s. It's very quiet. It's hot because it's the center of the country. It's where the 0 mile is. The bang, like the smack bang center of India. It's not far from where I'm staying at the moment. It's about 10 minutes that way. And it's a nice little city. Yeah. It's not very big. Everything's like, I think the whole radius is about 30 minutes across. They can kind of get from one end to the other in about maximum 30 minutes, which is nice. It's what Bangalore used to be like. But they've planned the city way better than Bangalore has been planned. So
I have two memories of Nagpur. I was there for about 10 days once. And one memory is you can walk to lots of different places, and I like cities where you can walk around. And the other one is that everyone told me it was like the city of oranges or something, and they kept going on about oranges. And the entire time I was there for 10 days, I never saw an orange. I never saw a single orange anywhere I went. Are you drinking orange juice now?
No, I'm actually drinking sugarcane juice, which is basically, I think it's in season now. It's summer, so I haven't had my meal, man. I haven't had my meal today. So I was like, I just finished the women's game and I came back. And then I quickly jumped onto the live. So I was like, okay, I need to have something. So like, okay, let me order a nice sugarcane juice and sip on it. It's very refreshing, by the way. It's got a little bit of ginger in it, a little bit of lime in it. Yummy.
Yeah, still no.
By the way, we'll get orange, man. Oranges are you get the best oranges in Nagpur, by the way, in the country. So you probably came in the off season, so that's why you didn't see it. But I will take some pictures of oranges and send it across to you.
I would like to see I just like to see a single orange in the place where I was told that there were oranges everywhere.
It is the city of oranges. It is. By the way, I want to ask you about this. Have you seen that that I don't know if it's a tweet or a comment that Shahid Afridi made about India?
No. Is it good?
Where he said that, oh man, if someone can pull that up, that is hilarious, bro. Like, I don't know what that guy was smoking, but that was so funny. He said something to the extent of, what did he say? He said something to the extent of India not even close to us. We can't even call it a competition or a rivalry because, they're just not in the same ballpark as us as far as talent and results are concerned.
In cricket?
I'm paraphrasing. Yeah.
It is actually, it's quite interesting. If you look at the history of it, like Pakistan become a major team before India, which now looking back on it seems so bizarre, right? Like where we are now. And so India win the 83 World Cup. But the 83 World Cup is like, not a one-off event because it was obviously a very good team, but it's not like there's lots of success. Like the 79 World Cup, they're not very good, right? And by 92, they don't make the final. By 87, they don't make the final either. So it's not as if there's a continuity. I'll get the word out eventually. Within that, right? And then in the 90s, Pakistan have this ridiculous team. So the 80s, they're probably the second best
India
team
got
in
to the
world.
semifinals in the World Cup in India in 87.
Yeah, but they don't make the final.
The World Championship in Australia in 85. So it wasn't like, I think that, come on. For India...
But there was only a couple of teams in that tournament. Like, my point is, they're not...
But mate, think about it, right? Like, see, you guys are so used to traveling from England to Australia and doing those away tours, right? For India to achieve success at that point in time, in the mid-80s, in a country like Australia where the conditions were drastically and vastly different than what they were at home.
I get all that. I'm just saying that... No, I get that. But what I'm saying is there wasn't a huge legacy from the 83 win in the way that we've sometimes... in the way that we saw in 2011, right? Where 2011 is sort of the beginning, or even your one, in fact, in 2007, which is the beginning of a new movement, right? 83 is kind of a contained era. Even if you go to 85, as you say.
There, that's see what's said. See what's said. Like, I think that's what it said. India is behind. He said India is 10 years behind Pakistan in everything: cricket, courage, and technology. Even calling them our rivals is an insult.
Why do you care what Shahid Afridi says? Like, no, when have we started taking Shahid Afridi seriously? He was biting a cricket ball not that long ago, dude. Like,
yeah, I swear, dude. I just found it so funny. I just want to check. I just want to know if you actually saw it or did you read it? Because I was like, what is this dude smoking, man? This guy is bizarre. Like,
he didn't. Anyway, I mean, I remember a couple of years ago, he came out with something saying that women shouldn't play cricket anymore. And it was like 2 or 3 years ago when it was like, even if you think that, like, why would you say it anymore? Like, it's just going to be like months of people dunking on you. I just think he's a bit of he's a bit of space cadet, isn't he? Like, I don't think Shahid Afridi is in the same universe.
Thanks for polishing that off nicely in the end.
Yeah, space cadet. You don't like space cadet?
No, I like that. No, I like how you paused and you actually paused there for a second, polished it off, and then said "Space Cadet."
I don't even know what I was going to say, and I don't mean this in a bad way either. But like, so when did he come over? He came over to play Blast cricket. So he made his first 100 in T20 cricket, and I was there, right? So weirdly enough, I followed him for about 4 Blast games because he was playing for Hampshire. And I was like, great, I'll go and watch, the end of Afridi's career. And you're watching him in the field, dude. And sometimes he's not even paying any attention, right? Like, he's literally just looking in another direction as the ball is being bowled. And I remember that series when he came over. At one stage, I said, is there any chance I could chat to him? And like, off the record, Hampshire were like, we don't know where he is. Like, he went missing, right? Like, he literally just went missing during it. And so, like, I mean, how much do you think how much do you think that he thinks before he says anything? And that isn't that part of the genius of Afridi though as well, right? That there is no filter, that there is no anything, but it's not like you can take it seriously. Like, it's a ridiculous thing to say. Anyway, just to go back to my point from before, I do think that if you look at it, it is interesting now that Pakistan were a better team for a period of time than India for a long period of time. But how much of that is just fast bowlers, right? How much of that is just only. That? Yeah,
I think fast
Pakistan
bowlers and
get
a few
fast
batters.
Bowlers, and no one else does, right?
Yeah, I think it was the fast bowlers and a few batters to their credit, the likes of David Miyanda, the likes of Amir. I wouldn't say Amir Sohail so much as I would say
Syed Anwar,
Ijaz
Inzi,
Ahmed, Syed Anwar, Inzi.
Yep. Zahir Abbas,
like they had Yusuf Yohana, Zahir Abbas, Yunus Khan. There were batters, but I think they dominated India, but the late 80s to the early 90s, or maybe even late 90s to their credit. But that was the only period. I can't remember them dominating us before or after that. Before I probably wouldn't know.
I mean,
but after that I wouldn't. I'm certain.
I wouldn't say they dominated
late
India,
1990s.
But I would say that they were the better team in the 80s and the 90s than India, right? 70s, I think India still
80s, I don't know. It's debatable. But I think late 80s, I'd probably give you that.
No, 80s. You look at Pakistan's team in the 80s, man, and they were the second best team in cricket, right? So, and
after West Indies,
basically West Indies, and then it's Pakistan. Pakistan do really well against the West Indies at times at that stage, and then they sort of cap that off with the '92 World Cup, right? And then they have that sort of change of generation a little bit where they do really well. I'm just looking at India. I don't know how we ended up. This is why this podcast is crazy, but now I've got it in front of me. I want to have a look at this. India in ODI cricket in the 80s. So in 1983. They win the World Cup, but they actually lost more games that year than they won. So it tells you how much they caught fire at the right time to win that World Cup. The next year, in 1984, they play 11 games. They have 3 washouts somehow, but they only win. So they have 8 actual games, of which they win 2. So it's a really fascinating one. They do, as you say, they do really well again in 85. And then in 86, they lose more games than they win again. I don't know how we got on all that, but here we are. We're there. I was going to ask you about who
I think it's an Indian thing, right? You win it's an Indian thing, right? You win a major world tournament and then you kind of sit back in your laurels for a year before you get a wake up call again. Much like India did after winning the T20 World Cup, we kind of sat back on our laurels and then got whitewashed by New Zealand here at home, and then went to Australia and lost there. And then suddenly we woke up after that. Now it seems like we've woken up, and now let's see what's going to happen here in England. I think that tends to happen with India, especially when we have milestone victories, because as a people we're so emotional in that sense, right?
Well, I wonder. Some of that also has to be. That it's when India wins something, that it goes emotional on both sides, right? Like there's a huge up and there's a huge down, right? So you do go in both directions from that. So I think that's fascinating. And someone else put a comment in, and I've now lost him, but it was a really good comment before about Rabada and about his numbers against left-handers recently. That was the other thing that I was going to mention, is that of recent times he started bowling a lot better to left-handers. So he's the most. I think he's the most important player in this game, right?
Of
like
course.
if Rabada
without an iota of a doubt.
Yeah, if he can't get through Khawaja early and isn't troubling ahead, I just think Australia have their way with South Africa.
Yeah, I think if you go at the start of the game, and who would you pit against, or who has the advantage? I think Australia have the advantage as far as just personnel are concerned and experience in Test cricket is concerned, and performing at that highest level is concerned. I think South Africa, to their measure, are a far less experienced side as far as Test cricket is concerned. Yeah. So Bella, thank you for correcting us, eh?
I didn't correct us. I was right about the overall stats. It's just that, and also within this as well, Rabada is actually very good against Khawaja, which is a very important matchup early on for that. So I think it's fascinating. But yeah, they're not as good bowling against left-handers as right-handers. And if you go up against Australia, there's a really. Have you ever read? Oh my God, what's the book called? Hitting Against the Spin by Nathan Lehman and Ben Jones. Have you read the book?
No.
When you come over, I'll give you my
whilst
copy.
I played cricket, I've read very little cricket books because I would get easily influenced by them, especially the autobiographies. They were just, especially as a young kid, I'd read a lot, right? Yeah. And I started seeing that when I played first class cricket, I was reading Stephen Waugh's autobiography. And then I suddenly started thinking that I'm Stephen Waugh and I had to struggle to get my runs. And I was like struggling to get my runs. Like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? Like, I don't need this. And then I'm never going to read a book when I'm actually playing cricket, especially a cricket book. So I never read cricket books while I was playing cricket. I just read everything else. I read spiritual stuff. I read like studies and researches and all that, but never cricket books. So I've not read this book for sure.
It's worth having a look at it because, some of it's a little bit dated now just because the game's moved on a little bit, but it's kind of talking about a few different things. One of the things it talks about is why Australia struggles so much in India. And it's because, for whatever reason, Australia produces more left-handed batters than other countries, right? And then they get to India, and India can just load up on off spinners, right? And so suddenly you've got players who are not traditional players of spin, or play spin in a different way because of Australian conditions, and they turn up and they're left-handers, and they're just facing people spinning the ball away from them. So those sorts of things are really, really fascinating when you go into like the evolution of a sport. And it's probably another reason why Australian bowlers have always been pretty good against left-handers as well, because they have more left-handers to go up against. In fact, when David Hookes first plays for Australia, and he was like the golden-haired child, and everyone thought he was going to be the next big star, Tony Gregg says, just another rubbish Australian left-hander. Like, it's that known that Australia picks left-handers by that stage, that he's just like disregarded, right? And that was before we were talking about all this sort of stuff. Who would you open the batting with if you're Australia? Constas, or would you move Marnus up to the top of the order and shuffle everyone else around?
Constas, dude. Constas. Put Rabada under pressure first up. Like, let him go, on the attack, and like he did against Bumrah, and kind of put India under pressure in those test matches in Australia. I would actually do that if I was Australia, and leave Marnus at number 3 or 4, wherever he comes. Number 3, right? And then Smithy comes at 4. So I would leave that as is. I think Constas is fresh blood that world cricket needs, and especially with the way cricket's played right now, I would actually go with Constas.
So I was at the Nets yesterday watching them. And I think he was the first player in Constance, so I'm pretty sure he's opening. I wasn't around for the chats afterwards, so I didn't see any of the articles or anything, but I'm pretty sure that is the case. They've kind of done it in a really weird way, Australia, because they played him against India when obviously they threw him out there and just told him he was great and see how things go. Then when they had a low pressure series against Sri Lanka, where they've already qualified for the World Test Championship, they then took him out of the side so that Head could open. And now they're throwing him back in for the World Test final. And he's still a young guy. Like, I'm not saying he can't handle the pressure because, we've seen him in that sort of situation. But if you were going to play him in this game, I would have thought playing him in Sri Lanka, even though it's different conditions, but just getting him more used to Test cricket and playing at the top level and handling all that sort of pressure would have worked better. But maybe they just see something in him where it's like, you don't need to coddle Constance as a character.
Well, yeah, as in, see, I think I can't think about why they wouldn't have played him in Sri Lanka. I found that quite strange as well. I thought, after his success against India and Australia, he should have been an automatic pick there, especially if you're thinking of him as a long-term option, right? But I think it also has to do something with the fact that Australia don't necessarily blood in youngsters. When I say youngsters, they don't blood in the 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds on a normal basis. They actually bring them in when they're 24, 25. And what's that all about, by the way? Why do they do that?
We're not obsessed with youth in the way that other cricket cultures can often be obsessed with youth. Like, no one in Australia takes the under-19 team seriously, right? Underage cricket in Australia.
That's unfortunate, to be honest.
Yeah,
because
we never have.
They'll just get so much more interest from the youngsters, because when they make it young, when youngsters make it to the biggest stage of cricket, or the second highest, or international cricket for that matter, at the age of 18 or 19 or 20, it is inspirational for the teenagers to say, oh man, if he's done it at 20 or at 19, I want to see if I can do it at 17. That belief, the conviction kind of sets in. I think they're missing a trick there.
Well, I just think Australia is more about how you perform and then earning your spot, whereas maybe in other places it's done slightly differently. Like, I remember when Michael Clarke was picked, right? I think we all know that Michael Clarke was good enough. Yeah, but we all know he was good enough to play Test cricket. I could tell you that the vast majority of Australia was complaining because he wasn't averaging 50 in Shield cricket at the time that he was picked, right? He was picked on potential. Yeah, but that's very much how Australia works as a society, right? And I remember, I would play cricket and I'd be like 14 or 15, and you'd make runs in junior cricket, and the seniors would be like, yeah, but you haven't done anything against the adults yet. Like, that is legitimate. That's why a lot of Australian juniors play senior cricket when they're 13, 14, 15. It's not to get experience. It's because if you don't do it, no one ever takes you seriously. They're like, well, if you can't do it against men, you can't do it. So it is a little bit weird from that perspective. But I think if you look at
that,
I wonder also if Australia is probably slightly better than most cricket cultures at picking the best 11 for the next game and not worrying as much about legacy and age and if this guy's going to play for the next 10 years, right? Like, if you look at some of the best players of all time from Australia, they have been dropped, right? Like, there is more of an element of that where, like Warne was dropped mid-career, right? And Michael Clarke was dropped. Like, very good players have been in and out of the side, whereas other countries are more likely to be like, no, all those guys, right? Whereas other countries are more likely to be like, this guy's going to be a star for the next 15 years. We'll just keep them in and eventually they'll come good. But Australia's like, no, you're making runs now, or you're taking wickets now, or you're out. So I do think it, I mean, what was it Jason Gillespie's last Test series? He averaged 200 with the bat and 15 with the ball. And
yeah.
I know those numbers are ridiculous.
I think in his last Test match, he got a double 100.
Yeah, right. And so, but there was no like, oh, maybe his batting's got a little bit better or whatever. It's quite hard. Colin, do you remember Colin Miller? Were you following cricket when Colin Miller played?
I love Colin Miller, Funky Miller.
So Funky is the Australian Test Player of the Year, and I reckon within 12 months he's not in the side anymore. Like, it was literally like, we've moved on.
But he started also really late. He was 35 when he made his debut.
He did. I just don't think other teams would have moved on that quickly from Adam Voges is another one, right? Where they were just like, we don't, you've already shown your dip, and so you're out. So I do think there is a different
listen, I want to ask you about this young cricketer. When, like, okay, sorry, he may not be young anymore. He's probably as old as I am. But he was young, right? And he batted so much like Ponting. And they were like pegging him to be the next Ricky Ponting from Australia. Had the same technique. Was a short kid. and had like a high backlift, exactly like Ricky Ponting. And I can't remember his name, man, but he was in the Australian, the academy in Brisbane.
Yeah,
He was actually there in the high performance academy for at least a year or two, but he just kind of disappeared after that, man. Just out of no, like, I reckon
that's not.
if he was
It's
around
not.
when T20 was coming through the scene, we probably would have known a guy like him, because I thought he had the ability, but just not the patience to develop himself as a cricketer, as a batter, because he certainly had the ability. Not Joe
I'm
Burns.
trying to think.
Definitely not Joe Burns. Young guy. Like, he had like a proper, like, exactly like Ricky Ponting technique. His hands would go up and away, and
I don't remember that.
then length balls he'd pull over mid wicket and all that.
I know they had a whole, like, there's kind of a lost generation of guys who were really, obviously Phil Hughes didn't quite come along, and then
Cosgrove,
sadly
Adam
passed.
Cosgrove, was it?
Mark Cosgrove.
Mars Cosgrove.
But
He's
Mark
a big
Cosgrove's a
lad,
big
but he
fella,
could bat,
the left-hander.
man. Yeah, but he could bat, bro. That guy
Oh,
could
mate, we
bat.
could talk for hours about Mark Cosgrove. He's phenomenal. So there's a Sheffield Shield final that he plays in, Robbie, where so in Sheffield Shield finals, if you're the home team, you just have to draw it, right? So what happens is generally it's the flattest wicket you've ever seen in your life for every Sheffield Shield final, right? And he's facing Ryan Harris. I'm trying to think who else was bowling for Queensland, but it was a good Queensland attack, right? And I promise you, he is literally so good at batting that he's watching the ball and he's dropping his bat on it from above and hitting it on the head to, like, put it into the ground, so that it's like he's playing, when you play tennis ball cricket and you try and hit the ball straight down? He's like doing that in a Sheffield Shield final with Ryan Harris bowling, right? Like, the talent that needs. But the problem with Cosgrove is that, like, I don't think he was really made to be famous. I don't think he was really made to be a professional. And so obviously he had problems. So he left South Australia because they kept trying to get him to be fitter, and he refused to be fitter. He went to Tasmania, but even if you have a look at it, like, he never really came along. But it's funny you mentioned him, because that's what I was going to say. Phil Hughes and Cosgrove, and there's a few other guys. You could probably throw Chris Lynn in there as well. There was a whole generation of guys that I thought were going to be great batters. And maybe with Phil Hughes, we were robbed, and he might have had a late development again and change. But those guys just never came through. And it's like this whole lost generation of batting talent where you're watching Sheffield Shield cricket and you're watching Cosgrove and you're like, he could hit the next ball anywhere he wants. He has so much time, but I think he probably averages like less than 40 in first class cricket, would be my guess. He played for, he played in county cricket for years, and he played for almost every county in the end. It felt like he was just going from team to team. And I wonder if he naturalized in the end. He played for Leicester, Glamorgan, played for South Australia, Tasmania. So he's played for 5 different teams. So 15,000 first class runs, an average of 40. And you've seen him. How good could he have been?
He was really good. I thought he had the potential to be like a proper, big Australian player. Certainly his health was an issue. One could see that from a young age itself. There's that other, who was that other left-hander, bro? Marcus North, I thought was also really, really good. Was it North?
So Marcus North was someone, you could almost throw him in that same generation I just said. His big problem was starting. So so I used to do a Marcus North betting game.
He has an Ashes 100, doesn't he?
Yeah. I think he must average about 36 in Test cricket. I think he make 100 in South Africa as well, I want to say.
Yeah.
So he would basically make less than 15 or over 80. And so what it meant was that, like, he doesn't have a very high average, but he would make a big 100 when Australia needed it. But he just, again, there was just a whole generation of guys. You could throw the Marsh brothers are probably part of that generation as well, where, do you remember Luke Pomersbach? Did you ever come across Luke Pomersbach?
He was good. He was really good as well, my word. Him and Sean Marsh. I don't know how Sean Marsh didn't have a longer Test career or a longer international career. That guy was gun.
But so those guys, a lot of those guys are not, I wouldn't put North or Hughes in this, but a lot of the other guys you're talking about had behavioral problems, right? So Cricket Australia at that stage wasn't run quite the way that it maybe should have been. They got away with stuff for a little while because they'd been so successful. And so there was Mark Palmer's batch has ended up really struggling a lot in his life. And I think you can find some articles about the things that he went through. The Marsh brothers definitely went through some problems early on. Cosgrove, as you just said. So there was a few guys. And I remember I wrote an article about how Australia had a bit of a behavior problem within cricket. And a lot of senior Australian players contacted me straight away going, I'm so glad someone has said this because these guys are just out of control. And from there, Sean Marsh became quite a good professional by the end of his career, right? Like he did really knuckle down. But he had the same problem as Marcus North. If he could get past 15, Sean Marsh would just make like 70 or 80 on auto, right? But he struggled so much to just get into his innings. And I reckon the breakthrough for him was probably that first IPL. Do you remember the first IPL where he just smashed everyone everywhere?
It was incredible.
Was that 2008? Yeah.
He was just, it was like, I'm telling you, there were times that I'd play against him and like, I'd be thinking, how does one stop this guy when he's past his first 20 runs?
Yeah.
It's just so hard.
But it's interesting you say past its first 20 runs because that's what we found. So it's actually in my book, Robbie. I talk about Marsh and North because I think they are players who are going to be remembered for their averages, and their averages are dragged down by the fact that neither of them could start very well, right? Like they just. I've never talked to Marcus about this, but I've commentated with him. Have you ever met him? He's a lovely guy. He's running Durham cricket now. Really smart guy as well. Yeah, and and I remember like trying to chat to him about it, but he was like, I don't think he was.
A lot of you guys always go back to the motherland, don't you all?
I think his wife's from Durham.
Is it?
Yeah.
Something on the other takes you guys back.
This is not my motherland, mate.
Yeah. Sure.
I can promise you that. In many different ways. Sure. I was one of the few people that didn't have. I couldn't even get a friggin' UK passport, or even an Irish passport. My family had moved over to Australia for too long. And I don't even have any great convict stories either. Like I'm somehow in the middle. Our family came over to do the gold mining. All right. This has been a spectacular KimAppa podcast because we haven't talked about anything we were going to, but we did spend 10 minutes on Mark Cosgrove. Let's just get back to the test match a little bit. Again, just a couple of last things. South Africa's batting over the last 2 years. For a long period of time, their bowling unit has been good and much better than good. Great at times, like fantastic, right? Their batting hasn't been very good. The last couple of years, they've just started they're not making a lot of runs, but they're making enough runs to back up their bowling lineup. But you look at their lineup on paper, and it doesn't look like it matches up pretty well against Australia, right? Like as in...
No, it doesn't. That's why... Which is why I said that I think Australia have a little bit of an advantage going into the test match. It really, it comes down to how well do South Africa turn up on day one, and if they can seize advantage, right? And if they can in the first day and actually create a dent in the game, then I certainly see them putting up a really good fight and really, pushing for winning the championship. But if Australia played a potential, I find them hard to stop at the moment.
Have you heard the story that Steve Smith might be playing his last test match? Has that reached Nagpur?
Yeah, I've heard that for a while now, to be honest. There's been whispers of this for a while, right? And Smudge is also a guy who's got varied interests, right? And I think for a guy of his caliber, as far as his batting is concerned, I think it takes an emotional toll to get a lot of those things right for him, to be able to score runs at with the consistency that he does. And I think that often escapes people. People think that it's easy to get because being as awkward or having as awkward as a technique that Smithy has, one thinks that it's people have a method to that madness. There's sometimes that method to the madness takes a huge emotional toll to get right and feel good about your batting, especially when you set such high standards like Smithy does. So if he does call time, I probably wouldn't be surprised, and I'm certain that we'll hear as to why he's calling time, because I suspect just the preparation would have probably taken an emotional toll, and it's not something that comes naturally to him. He has had to kind of build it and hold it all together, is what I think.
Yeah, No, for sure. So yesterday, I was there before the net started. So I think they did about an hour of fielding practice out on the main ground, and then they came to the nursery ground to do all the nets work. I want to say he started his net session at around 9:30, 10. I could be wrong. I might have got the time wrong. And I left Lords at about 1:30, and he was still in the same net, Robbie. Now, I'm not saying he didn't have a break in the middle. I'm not saying he didn't go to another net, but I watched him for about 45 minutes take throwdowns from James Franklin. Do you remember James Franklin? And I'm trying to remember who the other person was he was giving him throwdowns, but might have been Vittori might have as well at one stage. So like they had to rotate the throwdown guys for him. And when I left, it didn't look like he was about to stop. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
so
I don't think so.
Found that I really find that interesting from that perspective of it didn't feel like I was watching someone who is about to play their last match. It really looked to me from as an outsider like someone who was going to go on.
Well, let's hope he's going to go on because I think cricket needs some of these big guys to just hang about for a little bit till the younger guys can come and take the game forward, at least as far as Test cricket is concerned. Otherwise, Test cricket will go through a little bit of a lull, and God knows where that will lead cricket to. With the amount of changes that have been happening with the game, I would love for Test cricket to remain as one of the versions that stay in the game. I think I'm done with ODI cricket, man. I think we should just move on from ODI cricket.
I think I wrote that article in about 2009, which was that's the obvious one to go. And to be honest, when I wrote that, people are like, "What are you talking about? It's really popular." It's really dipped of recent times. I don't mind the ODI World Cup going on and playing friendlies.
The ODI World Cup should be the only thing that should go on, and ICC should actually work this thing around better, right? Man. Yeah, like I reckon you play quadrangulars organized by ICC. I think you play tri-series organized by ICC instead of playing your friendlies or, leading up to the World Cup, of course, leading up to the 50-over cricket World Cup. They should play quadrangulars and tri-series, and that'll be so good. And it should be organized by ICC, right? So it's still another revenue model for them. They're all constantly worried about making sure the revenue keeps coming in. And so I think that it caters to that as well. And I think people would love a tri-series, yeah. I think I would love a tri-series. I think it's freaking awesome.
I don't know about tri-series, but I do like quad series. Once you get that fourth team in, I'm all in. A couple of other things. I don't know if you saw this week. Sophie Eccleston is taking a rest from cricket. And it was really fascinating to me. She's obviously, I think she's still ranked the #1 bowler in limited overs cricket. I can't remember if it's both, but she was certainly the #1 bowler for ages. And she stepped away from domestic cricket at the moment. And what I found really interesting is that we're still not treating it the way that I think we should treat that. And that's why I know that you're really into all this sort of stuff. So it'd be fascinating to get your thing. But it was like, oh, she's taking a well-being break and everything. And I was like, can't we just say it's an injury? Like, as in, it's a mental health injury, right? Like, she needs that. There's something not right within her game, and it should be treated the same way that an injury is being treated, where it's still being treated as this sort of, oh, she's taking a well-being break, whatever. And it's like, there's something wrong with her at the moment, and she needs to go fix it. It could be an Achilles, it could be a mental thing, right? Like, it should be treated the same way. And I feel like we're still not quite there in cricket.
Yeah, but I think the only thing that'll get us there, Jar, is to keep saying that it's a well-being break, to normalize the well-being, right? The well-being part of it, to normalize the fact that that athletes need it as well. Because I remember there was something that was happening, or something that's was going on about her, about her weight or her health or something of that sort, but nobody knows.
It was about the fitness and Alex Hartley, and then she had the issue with Alex Hartley. So something.
So it could be something that's rooted in that. Maybe she also wants to address stuff, and maybe it actually is linked to some well-being stuff that probably she's going through. Because I remember when I was going through my stuff, I put on weight. I should show you a picture of how I look, dude. I look like a barrel. And people
don't worry,
we're
gonna do an episode where you and I just show the photos of us at our heaviest. I think I've still got you covered, Robbie, if we're being honest.
But yeah, I think with Sophie, I think I like the fact that it's been called a well-being break, and I think the more you keep players keep taking time out for this, I think the stigma attached to it will drop away, and then it will be respected. So I think this only encourages, and I think, see, Indians can't do it, right? For Indians, it's going to be very hard to do because the competition is so intense, right? And so it will take a long while before the stigma attached to a well-being break in India is considered, an important thing for an athlete
I
to
mean,
do.
you say that, but I came from Australia in the 80s and 90s. Do you remember when Matt Renshaw was it in Nagpur? No, it was in
There's
Pune.
another
The
guy.
test match.
That's another guy who I thought should have had a longer test career. He's good as
We're
well.
not stop mentioning random Australians who should have made more runs. But you're right. But do you remember when Matt Renshaw was playing in Pune and he ran off to go to the toilet, right? And Alan Border was like, a real man would crap his pants. He didn't quite say it that way, but that's basically what he said. He was like, I can't believe he left the field and they could have had a collapse. And in Matt Renshaw's like a 20-year-old kid going, I don't want to shit myself on national TV or international TV, right? Which is a very normal human thing to do. And so I grew up in that culture. So I really struggled. If you go back to my early writings, how I wrote about Harmison and Trescothick and some of the other guys who had mental health issues, because we were trained in Australia that is not how that England players were soft and that's why they needed breaks. And whereas Australian players would go through it. And then you find out that, of course, there were plenty of Australian players who had proper mental issues that weren't looked after because they couldn't admit that they had an issue. And so Australia's flipped. So I'm not saying that India is about to flip, but you could see why in other countries like, in India and Pakistan and Sri Lanka, it might be further behind or in a different direction at the moment. But it doesn't, if Australia can get there, and Australia now understands mental health, like there's so many campaigns in Australia about men's mental health because we basically spent 150 years going, if you're not bleeding, you can walk.
Yeah.
I
think it holds true across the board, and across the board, not just in Australia, but I think in the rest of the world as well. I think men's mental well-being is something that it's one of my primary niches that I'm working on is within my coaching, as far as my coaching is concerned, and I'm building up programs for that as we speak. And it's something that I think needs to be normalized. And I think as men, we're not taught how to process emotions, as kids. As boys, we're not taught how to process emotions because of the history of basically how we're raised. And I think because we don't process emotions well, we don't articulate them well, we don't know how to navigate through the different depths of emotions that we actually experience in different relationships, in different walks of life. And I think those are aspects that men genuinely actually need help with, so that they represent themselves well in every aspect of life, in every relationship that they are in, whether it's work, personal, professional, friendship, brotherhood, any of those, right? I think we need help with that.
I think this is another way that I think women's cricket is advanced on the men's game. Is just, I remember talking to Kate Cross, who I think she'd struggled with some mental health stuff, and I think it was the first World Cup tour she'd done, or maybe it was a tour of Australia. I can't remember. And she just said to me, Jarrod, I'm struggling. Like I've never been away this long, because men quite often go on 2 and 3 months tours, but for a woman, it wasn't a normal thing to do. And I remember talking to some of the other women, they were like, we're trying to tell the boards that we want shorter tours, more games in less time, because we don't want to be away for as long, right? Whereas if you go back to the historic of cricket, it's a lot of players having breakdowns because they're on 4 and 5 months tours, right? Like it's a long time to be away from. Yeah, it's ridiculous. Just on touring and everything, I don't know if you saw this story this week, but Akeal Hussain did not play for the West Indies because his visa didn't come through. He wasn't the only player. I think there was another West Indian player. Robbie, it is 2025. This has been a global sport for 40 years. How is it possible that cricket still hasn't worked out visas in this modern world? Like it is mind-blowing to me how many times this happens to franchise cricket, associate cricket, and occasionally to the major teams. Or it's like cricket just needs someone whose job it is to get visas for everyone. And I've said this out loud so many times. I've had people from the ICC contact me and be like, how do you think we'll do it? And I was like, find a visa company who specializes in all the countries in the world and literally hire them and put them on a retainer. So that is their job, to make sure that all the cricketers in the world, and then I don't care if you're a franchise league or an international team, everyone has to pay into the pot. And that's what happens. They get the visas for you. It is ridiculous that this keeps happening.
Yeah, but for that to happen, see, with franchise cricket, I can still understand it happening simply because there's so much franchise cricket today in the world, and so many of them are not legitimized in a sense, right? So I can see that happening in franchise cricket, but it shouldn't be happening at the international cricket level. That is just appalling, right? it's an absolute pain in the ass when it comes to this visa stuff, especially when it comes to international cricket. I understand that there are geopolitical issues like India and Pakistan. It takes there's a lot of kind of stuff that when Pakistanis had to come into India, there's a whole bunch of things that they have to do, right? But that's not the case with West Indies and England. It should be a walk in the park, man, and it shouldn't be stuff that should be happening unless there are geopolitical issues. Then one can say, okay, this is an outlier issue, but this one is, should be right up their alley to kind of figure it out and say, okay, this should be done. Like, this guy's an
Even the
international cricketer going to
geopolitical
represent his
ones,
country.
it's like there are enough. Do you know what I mean? Visa specialists. If that was your job and you're constantly having to get those visas, you understand how it works, right? Do you know what I mean? Like there are ways of doing this that I think we're
But I
too
reckon there's
far
also a lot of
behind.
changes, right? Like, I remember when I want to like come and play, club cricket in England. There was a
Yeah.
time when they had this first class. You have to play first class, and you have to have, like, if you want to play county cricket, then the preceding year you had to play a certain number of first class. So one day cricket, it's like some strange rules that are there, man. You're
No,
coming
I
up
mean,
to
that
play
happens all the
cricket.
time. And you get,
Yeah,
I know that a lot of the county reporters are experts on visas, right? And the
yeah,
reason they're
yeah,
experts on visas is because it comes up so much in county cricket
yeah,
and even league cricket in the UK, as you said.
yeah.
I remember, do you remember Ricky Wessels, the Kepler
No,
Wessels' son, who played? I think he played a little bit for
no.
South Africa. He came
Mm.
over one year on like an entrepreneur's visa or something, and like the only reason I knew about it is because every county writer was writing about it because they were all obsessed with visas. And
Yeah,
it sort of does show you just how much these things are important and play a part. We've seen players turn up in countries and be sent home, right? Because they haven't had
yeah.
the right documentation. I think Shoaib Akhtar, I don't know if he made it to the airport or not, but I think he tried to come out for a county deal and had to go back because the visa had not been sorted. It is a real headache for our sport. Lastly, you wouldn't have watched much of the India A game.
No,
Actually, was it
a little bit.
televised? Oh, you did
No,
see some.
you can watch highlights on
Yeah.
YouTube though.
The top four in that game: KL Rahul, Jaiswal, Gill, and who was at three?
Karun. Oh, it was Ishwaran who came at 3 in
Eastwarren.
today's game.
Are we getting any tips here, or do you think they're just trying everyone in the top order?
They're just trying everyone. That's what I think is happening. I think we can safely say now that KL and Yashasvi will open the batting. We'll have to see who bats at 3. Will it be Sai Sudarshan or will it be Karun Nair? Because 4 is going to be Shubman Gill for
It
sure.
can be Gill, yeah.
Yeah, 5 is again up in the air. 6 will be Rishabh. I think 7 could be Nitish Kumar. And I would like Nitish Kumar to be 7 or Jadeja to be 7 and then Nitish 8.
Yeah. I think Nitesh should be 7 ahead of Jadeja. And that's not because I think he's a better player, but I think it's about role definition, right? Like he has to be thinking like a batter who's going to bowl a few overs. Like you want him to, because, you don't want to Moeen Ali him, right? Remember when Moeen Ali, England would put him in every spot in the order and it was like, it absolutely
I
went to
feel
hell.
bad for Mo, man. I feel bad for Mo. I think England wasted him. I think they wasted him. He was a proper top order bat. I think they actually wasted him, to be honest.
I've never written this article, but I think it's a really interesting one of like, who did they ruin more, Bairstow or Moeen Ali? Because they really
Mo,
tried to stuff Bairstow up
Mo for
as well.
sure.
Oh, but
Mo
you
for
look at
sure.
Bairstow, he was
But
everywhere in
they,
that order. They brought in
yeah,
another
but
wicketkeeper while he was there.
yeah, but they did that to Mo across formats. They didn't do that
Yeah.
to Bairstow across formats. They did that to
No,
Mo across formats.
Bairstow being ignored in the limited overs probably helped him for a while because when he came in on a surge, right? And so they were just like, he's going to be an opener. But when they brought in Butler to be a specialist number 7, like of all the stupid things I've ever seen in professional sport, I was like, you got like, and I know Ed Smith loved Butler and he thought Butler was going to change the world, but I was like, guys, Bairstow was just going to sit there the whole time going, they don't want me to wicket keep anymore.
Yeah.
All right. Let's
Ah,
get it. Have we got gifts? I don't know. There's lots of. Here we go.
what do we have?
I have no idea. Has it come up? Can you see it? Oh,
It's just buffering now. Why is everyone looking at me? Because it's that number 9 year. It's the year of
oh,
completion, my friend. And if South Africa pull a rabbit out of the hat, I wouldn't be surprised because everyone who's not won has won this year.
I think also. I don't think. I think the NBA. I don't think OKC or Indiana have won a title either, unless Indiana won one way back when. No, because they would have been in
OKC
the
haven't
ABA.
won. No,
OKC
haven't won.
definitely have. Because OKC was Seattle and Seattle never won. Oh no, did Seattle win a title early on? OKC haven't won, but Seattle might have. But
OKC, I know for sure haven't won.
Okay, well there you go. So there's a lot of teams that might win their first title this year. Let's see if South Africa can join RCB and whatever these other football. It looks like football.
Yeah, what's football?
Yeah, I don't know anything about that.
The winning side, no matter. But it's such a Chris Gayle thing to do. I loved it. It was such a Chris Gayle thing to do.
How many teams would he have played in the IPL? I know RCB is one of his major ones, but
KKR,
RCB, Chennai,
RCB, no Chennai.
Did he go to Mumbai?
No, he didn't. He went to Punjab. He finished at Punjab.
Punjab, yes. Oh, of course.
Yeah. Oh.
Who are the kids there? Is that their?
One is Hardik's kid, and then the other one is Krunal's kid.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah. Sweet, eh? So sweet. I love it.
We have like 1 million super chats, man. So let's get through them as quickly as we can. Sankalp says, apologies for the off-topic question. I mean, this whole podcast has been off-topic. We had about an 8-minute rant on orange juice for no reason.
Oranges, not orange juice.
Does your opinion change Rabada now that the exact... We've done that one before. We did that one last week. Kunab says, congrats RCB, Robin. We've done these ones, guys. You've got to take off the old ones. I don't know how many times we're going to talk about the same fish restaurant. No, we've done that one as well.
Yeah, we did this one as well.
No, we did this one.
Yes, you've done this as well.
Oh my God. Let me try and find... I'm going to...
Bro, pick the right questions. Pick today's questions, bro.
Did we do this one?
I think we did. Yes, I think we did.
God. All right. Abhinav says, I wonder how South Africa feel about that being on the other side of it. Do you remember, though, like that period, like it was quite heated. It wasn't just the sandpaper. Do you remember when you would have played at Durban before, right?
Yeah, love Durban.
You know how Durban has that weird change room where you have to share that tiny little stairway up together.
Yeah.
And that's where Quinton de Kock and Warner went at each other. And that's where Faf comes out in his towel. Like that's the bit I always remember. And when I worked for Scott, we played warm-up games at Durban. And when I went up the stairs, I was like, oh my God, I'm on Faf's towel stairs. Like I'm literally on it used to be the same was at Trent Bridge. You had some of those grounds, the way to get to the change rooms are just too close to each other.
Common staircases, common stairways.
Yeah. And so you end up, but yeah, sandpaper there. I'll need the next question because I have no idea which questions were on here, guys. Singh says, new league, almost ready. So many players retiring. Well, I've been talking. I want to talk to you about this. I was talking the other day. There's Nick Friend has written an article about how a lot of so many players now are seeing their post-career job as playing in veterans leagues, right? And I remember talking to Mitch Johnson about this and Stuart Meeker. They've both been telling me how they've been trying to stay fit for the veterans leagues. Whereas in the old days, like once you stop playing, it's really weird. You can play for another 10 or 15 years now, can't you, in some of these leagues?
You can, because it's a little bit more relaxed. And to be very honest, a lot of Indians are doing it because of a little bit of the pay upgrade they get, because the discrepancy between the pay of say, for example, you play the entire domestic season, I think you earn about 25 to 30 lakhs, which is about 35,000 US dollars, right? If you play all 3 formats, so that's about 8 months of cricket, and then you earn about 30 lakhs. 25 to 30 lakhs.
Mm.
But if you go and play these leagues and you have a half decent player, you can play 3 leagues and earn that same amount of money for 2 months of work. And you
Yeah,
can
and
still do other stuff, right? So it just makes that
well,
much more
that's
sense.
what I was going to say is it's the ability to do it around because some of the tournaments are like a week and a half, 2 weeks long, right? Like you can literally
Yeah,
take a holiday from your job, go off and play in the tournament and come back.
yeah,
It
yeah.
works really, really well. I can tell you it is such a pain for me, Robbie, though, because now no one's in the old days, someone would retire and you know what city they're in, and you'd be like, I know what job they do, I know how to contact them. I don't even know where any of the retired players now are always off in some random league somewhere playing somewhere else. It's like it takes forever to track them all down.
But it's also nice, right, in a way, to be honest, Jared, because think about it, because when you stop playing cricket, there's such a huge drop from a human perspective, from the earning capacity. There's a massive drop. The sense of relevance and significance is a massive
Yeah,
drop, and so from those aspects, it also is heartening to know that they still feel relevant because of the thing that they develop themselves to become. They spend their entire childhood to become these athletes and achieve something in for themselves and for their countries through the sport. And eventually when they do finish, there's such a huge drop from this level of relevance and significance. You can like fall deep into mental health issues, and a lot of people fall into that, especially when they're there in the limelight and suddenly the limelight's taken away from you and you just go into the wilderness and suddenly you're like, who am I now? So this gives you a semblance of relevance and significance again. You're sitting with peers, you're sitting with childhood friends, playing the sport that you love again. So for me, it's a very heartening place. And I'm very happy that these leagues exist, because as far as mental health is concerned, I think it's a huge blessing, to be very honest. And
it's
also
also like
think about it, it's because from a husband's perspective, from a man's perspective, from a father's perspective, it's also providence, right? How do you provide for your family?
yeah.
You provided for your family in a certain medium for a certain number of years, and suddenly when you retire, all of that goes away, and if you haven't prepared well for it, and then suddenly you're like, how am I going to do this? And then we men don't, like we just spoke about a while back, we don't know how to process
Mm.
emotions well, and we don't know how to navigate, we're not taught how to navigate through these things well. And then you suddenly find yourself being suicidal, and you suddenly find yourself in the pits of depression and you don't know what to do. And then suddenly you're hitting the bottle, or you're beating people up, or you're just dealing with stuff. So for me, on those fronts, it's a massive blessing, man.
Well, also just on a very basic level of, I've been around a lot of cricket writers who've lost their jobs or, aged out of
Yeah,
their careers, right? And
yeah,
they usually go off and they write other things because their main skill is writing, right? So they might write a
yeah,
book. Some of them do, travel stuff or whatever it may be. Your main skill is playing cricket, and suddenly you can't play cricket anymore. Even if it's a bit of, even if you're facing a 55-year-old bowler, you're still using
yeah,
your cricket skills, right? Like there's an
yeah,
element of that. So I can understand, like, I can understand the vacuum, that happens. And I've always been fascinated with cricketers on LinkedIn, because you see
mm,
that sort of 5-year period afterwards, and they like cycle through like 2 or 3. They get a corporate job straight away, and then corporate job isn't really what they wanted, and then they start their own business, and that doesn't work because they don't know how to run a business, right? And they just, they end up with a startup company trying to help them out, and that
mm,
doesn't quite work. Like, it's trying to find that next thing when your skills are completely separate to what
yeah,
the market needs anymore.
yeah.
But I'm assuming what Singh was trying to say is that everyone is retiring from
Yeah.
international cricket because the IPL will be longer as well. Kaushal says Nitesh instead of Jadeja and play Kuldeep at 8. So just to go
Well,
back to what we were saying
possible.
before, if the wickets are going to be flat and the
And
wickets are
dry.
going to be dry, you have to have Jadeja.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah,
I
I
don't
agree. You have to have
the
Jadeja.
way that in Australia, I'm not sure you needed Ashwin and Jadeja or Lyon. That is not what we've seen in UK so far this year.
Mm.
Kaushal says, also, what do you think of Diageo? I always call him Diego. I don't know why. Diageo are
Are they
selling.
actually selling it, or is it just a rumor? From what I hear, it's just a rumor. I don't think they are.
Okay.
Is it a rumor? You'd be
No,
able to tell us, Jared, because
someone
you do
told me
research quite a
online
bit.
the other day, but I haven't seen anything.
Yeah, from
Um,
what I've heard, I've just heard it's a rumor. I don't think they're selling. That's what I've heard.
I always thought it was a weird ownership anyway. But and now they've won the title. Could they not just? I'm not saying they're going to, but I could understand why this is the time to sell. And you see that a lot in American sports. Teams own ownership groups own them for ages. They win the title and they almost immediately sell because that's at the top of the market, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Tack has corrected us, saying it's fake news on Afridi. He even posted himself saying that you should fact check before.
No, Tack, as in it was actually I think our team put up a link to the whole thing. Yeah, as in so well, that's it's what I read, but our team's also put up something, so just so you can see the article as well. So if you can just put that up for Tack, please.
But if Afridi has come out and said he didn't say it, that's also, we're more than happy. I didn't hear it anyway. Yeah,
I think it's speculative because he said he wasn't chewing, he wasn't biting the ball.
Oh, I love that image so much. Lentil says first class and now Puran. What is happening? Look, with the West Indies, and this goes back to Singh's question a moment ago. The West Indies have really struggled to have a good relationship with Puran for a long time. We know they've struggled with Hetmeyer as well.
Their players in general.
Yeah.
With all of their players, not just Puran.
No,
players in general.
But that next generation have been mentored by the previous generation, and they had a terrible relationship with the board. I think the board was slightly better run for a little while, but Johnny Grave was running West Indies cricket. He's gone over to Major League Cricket. And I think there's a bit of a vacuum again. I wouldn't be too worried, guys. Some of these players will be back. I mean, we've already heard Klaasen has said a lot of it was to do with the changing of the coach, right? Like there are many different reasons people make these decisions now. Jessica says, thank goodness Test cricket is back. Life is exciting again. The autumn hibernation is over. Yeah, I know you like the IPL and obviously played in it. Love the IPL, but we talked about this before. You grew up as a Test cricket fan. It's different.
5 levels above the IPL. I agree. I concur.
Matthew says, why has reverse swing disappeared from cricket since the sandpaper? So there's a bunch of different reasons.
Because everyone's shitting bricks after the sandpaper game. Everybody thinks that the cameras are on them now.
Yeah. Camera people follow the ball a lot more than they used to, is one. 2, the wobble ball was already starting to kill reverse swing a little bit because in a lot of different places, it was better to keep the ball wobbling for 50 overs rather than try to prepare it for reverse swing anyway. So that changed things quite a bit. Players, we haven't discussed this yet, but players like Robbie believe that the spit was a big part of it. But as we've now talked to scientists, we now know that the spit has nothing to do with it. But players believe
Screw the scientists, I would say. Screw the scientists. We've been
there. No, not on this podcast, Robbie. No, because now you sound like Syed Ajmal.
I'm telling you, it's
no. I'll send you.
It's the way you shine it. It's the way you shine it. It's not the science behind it. It's what mint you have in your mouth while you're using your saliva as well. There's a lot of factors there, guys.
Well, you have to talk to the scientist because remember, this guy split cricket balls up and used all those methods that cricketers have used. But anyway, we'll get to that another day. But the point being is that cricketers believed that it wasn't going to reverse as much, right? And so, as we've seen this year, people are trying to reverse the ball more because they believe it's going to reverse more. That also plays a part. But the way that the balls were being developed was certainly a big part of it. The last thing I would say is that Test matches don't go as long anymore. Right? Because the seam bowlers were dominating. So reverse swing makes more sense on flat pitches anyway when you're banging the ball into a surface. Parth says, every time I see KL roll, I think he should have been up there with Kohli and Rohit. Am I crazy? Or has he been mowing allied? I'm glad you made the sound effect at the end of that. So, Robbie, you were telling me off air...
I wasn't saying shit.
Can I throw something to you? The players who are the most flexible with their batting positions are usually used in the most varied ways, and so they don't always become
greats.
Yeah, because they are constantly shuffling around and they're trying to work out what their new role is. Let's just say that KL Roll, what would you say? Just close your eyes. What would it be his best batting position in Test cricket if I didn't ask you, if I didn't give you any other
opening
context?
The batting.
Okay.
Opening the batting.
But he didn't start as an opener, did he?
He did.
like domestically.
Yeah. He
And
I
so they've
opened
used
together for
him
Karnataka.
opening 3, 4, 5,
3.
6. With the gloves on, without the gloves?
Without the gloves. If he's opening the batting without the gloves.
No, but
He's
I'm
a very
saying
he's
he
a
has kept in test. He's kept in test matches, hasn't he? Or am I making
yeah,
that
a
up?
fair bit. A fair bit.
It's a lot of different jobs.
It is. It is.
Lentil says, heard the ECB is trying to bring back the Champions League T20 thoughts. So I found this really interesting. Peter Lawler was asking me about this at the ground yesterday. But why this is interesting is when the Saudi Arabia stuff happened, Saudi Arabia was talking about the Champions League T20, right? Because they wanted a competition went separate to the IPL. And then there was going to be the T10 tournament or the second IPL in Saudi Arabia. But this is one of them. And a lot of people in cricket really like this. I think they have forgotten how badly the Champions Trophy went in. The Champions League went in cricket. Because what happened
listen, our show is filled with aficionados, right? It's not the mass cricket fan. It's the one who's well read, loves the sport, deeply passionate about our sport, and they like the finer nuances of the sport. So I'm telling you, our audience will love the Champions League. I'm sorry, they'll absolutely adore it. They'll watch it and all of that, right? But the tough thing here is cricket today is as much a business as it is a sport. And as a business, the Champions League T20 did not do well at all. In fact, it fell hard on its face, and they could not bring crowds to the grounds. Now, unless cricket moves to just league and franchise cricket, then there's a possibility of Champions League T20 becoming a thing. I don't see it becoming a thing with the existing system.
No, there was also problems if you think about it. So you had like Victoria playing, and Victoria is a well-known brand, but you had Otago playing and the Cape Cobras playing, right? Like these are not well-known brands. So things are different now than when the Champions League was originally tried.
Sure. But again,
you
say the other problem is you have players playing for both franchises, right?
That's what I was going to say. That's the big one that hasn't changed.
But that should be left to the players.
But forget, I don't even think you have to worry about it being left to the players. They're just going to pick the IPL teams or the owner with the most money. But the point being is, if that happens, you should be able to get an equal player qualified to play in that tournament for you. Sure. But there was the Champions League by the end was such a joke. Do you remember there was one year where Mumbai played in it with an extra overseas player because they said they didn't have enough local players available, and then that local player was like playing in a league. Like it just became, it just wasn't particularly well run.
I think it was Surya Kumar. I think it was Sky. I think it was Sky. I think it was Sky. If my memory isn't wrong, I think it was Sky. I could be wrong, guys. I could be wrong, but I think it could have been Sky who was.
So yeah, the ownership thing causes a little bit of problem. And if you remember, as you said before, I think it was a Cameron White or Kieran Pollard qualified for 4 teams one year. One of them qualified for every team. So all those issues are there. But from a cricket perspective, which is what you fans are and what me and Robbie are, we would love to see it. But me and Robbie have to see how it can be financially viable. So it doesn't matter if it's the ECB, if it's the Saudis, if it's the Ambanis, whoever wants to bring it back is fine. But they have to show us how they can make money from it. And if that's the case, I'm all in. I'm all in on
100%. So am I. And I think that can only happen. And I don't know if this is legit news or no. But I read somewhere on an Instagram post that Arun Dhumal, who is the chairman of the IPL, saying that cricket seems to be it's moving towards the franchise model a lot like football, and it would augur well for cricket perhaps to move towards that model if ICC decides to do that, and if ICC do decide to do that and just conduct World Cups and quadrangulars and tri-series and Test cricket. I think you can come up with a model where it can be like the Champions Trophy in football, where you play a leg here and then you play a leg there, and it goes through the year, and then eventually it kind of culminates in a final. That makes it really exciting and a truly viable television and on-field product.
Yeah, exactly. And I think when it started the first time, you had heaps of excitement about the IPL, and the other leagues weren't even at that level. Like SA20 didn't even exist at that point, right? The Big Bash didn't exist when the Champions League started. We're in a different point of cricket now, and you've also got a lot of IPL owners owning teams all around the world. So I love the idea, and I if you go back and find my original writings on it, it was the tournament I was the most excited about at the time, but it didn't work then, and we have to think about how we do it now. But as I said, ECB, Saudi Arabia, other people have talked about bringing it back. I think the Players Union really want it back as well. They're another organization that's very much involved with it. So
which
there
Players
we go.
Union? The Australian Players Union?
No, the international version. What are they called? They just changed their name. Are they called the World Cricket Federation or something now? It used to be FICA. FICA, Federation of International Cricketers Association. You know about them?
No.
What do you mean? How do you not know about the Players Union? So
I don't know about
it's basically every team that's not Asian, isn't it? Is there an Asian team in it? I don't know.
I don't think there is.
Yeah, so they want it back as well. So there's a few different key groups that are interested in it, but let's see. Anyway, Robbie's got to go eat some oranges. I've got to find some. What was it called? Cane sugar? No, what was it? What was your drink?
Sugar cane juice.
Sugar cane juice. I definitely won't be drinking that. We'll be back next week after the World Test Championship.
Don't mock it till you try it, huh?
I'm not mocking it. I just can tell you I won't be drinking it.
You will be drinking it. I'll make sure you do.
I'm not going to find it in a London local London store to me anyway.
But for all you know, you might now in Birmingham.
Yeah, in Birmingham I might find it. In in other parts of London, not my part of London. We'll be back next week, so we'll do a complete recap of the World Test Championship, and obviously we'll throw forward to the big series that's coming up as well. Robbie, thank you very much. Everyone, thank you. Like, subscribe, do all the things that you all do, and we'll see you again next week.